And okay, so going back to what I was going to ask you though, the point is you are an objective journalist. Few people may not know this, but you are not a Real Madrid fan, and that's why we love having you because no one can accuse you of being biased. You call it like it is, like a straight shooter, Ewan. So during Celtic's surge in the first half, their high pressing and all the energy they were bringing, the chances, the woodwork, the post, we were giving the ball away. Me as a Real Madrid fan, I had a sense of calm because I'm starting to get really desensitized to Real Madrid starting games like this, and like, you know, I'm an avid basketball fan. In basketball, this is classic stuff. You go into an away stadium, it's raucous, it's, you know, they play above their level, and in the end, if you're really good, the experience just trumps it. You just slow the game down, you control it, and you kill them off slowly, and you win in the second half. Real Madrid has become that, I find, over the entire Ancelotti period. It's just kind of been ingrained into our identity. It doesn't really matter how we start it. We'll ride an initial wave. I'm not saying this is always the case, but, you know, generally speaking, this has been the case. We can ride the wave, the onslaught. We can have terrific defensive interventions. In this first half, in particular, Carvajal and Modric came up big after our structure broke down, and Modric was everywhere. Did I say Modric or I meant Militao? Militao and Carvajal were coming up big in the box, and Modric was covering a lot of ground defensively and tracking. And I just knew, sometimes teams can sustain that kind of energy. Like, we've seen Ajax do it, for example, a few years ago when they knocked us out. Like, I swear, from minute 1 to 180 over 2 legs, their energy didn't cease. But I wasn't sure if Celtic are that kind of team. And their energy did wane a little bit, and we controlled it, and we started to knock the ball. Once we went up 1 goal and 2 goals, we started to play without pressure. You saw the third goal, it was 34 passes before Hazard put the ball in the back of the net. And the subs came on. We have a lot of depth in midfield. Bringing on Camavinga, Rudiger, Rodrigo is a bit of a cheat code. Hazard had a great game off the bench. So my question to you is, as a neutral fan, did you think that in that moment, did you feel like Celtic were overrunning Real Madrid, or did you feel like that experience would eventually come good and they would overturn it?
Both. In that moment, they were overrunning Real Madrid. They were, but at the same time, yeah, exactly. I knew Real Madrid had what it took to overcome that and maybe keep it 0-0 and then score the goal, or if they did go a goal down, to come back. You know, not necessarily because of doubting Celtic's ability or fitness to keep it going, but more just when they attack like that, there's so much space, and there was so much space even in the first half. In the second half, they found it. It was maybe a little bit easier once you score the first goal and Celtic attacked that little bit more. There's even more space in behind. But even in the first half, it was there. It was just, they just couldn't find the pass or the ball, which was just so strange. You know, there was a couple of really nice transition passes from Modric, from Kroos, who had so many in this game. But then the counter just didn't quite get moving the way it should have done. Actually, once Hazard came on, the counter-attacks actually worked a lot better. Hazard did a really good job of coming back, linking up, getting these moves going. But there was so much space in the first half and the second half. So when you looked at that, you thought Real Madrid are going to be too good for sure. They're going to find this. And it kind of got to the point, maybe in the second half, you're thinking, is the goal coming? Is this the point where Modric maybe gets substituted off? Because you felt if one person is going to find and unlock that space with one killer pass, it'll be Modric. So I was worried maybe that he gets taken off and then it becomes a bit more difficult to break into that space. But there was so much space there that you just knew with quality like that Real Madrid has over time, over 90 minutes, they're going to play 1 or 2, 3 really good balls and get some space, get chances like that. And well, yeah, that's kind of how it played out.
So I just want to kind of reiterate too, because I feel like the Benzema injury happens early enough that we're going to talk about it pretty quickly. And quite honestly, obviously that's a huge talking point. But in the first initial wave, what minute did Benzema get injured? I'm going to pull this up. So he came off in the 29th minute. Okay, so within the first half an hour. And at that point, Real Madrid hadn't really gained control of the ball yet, to the degree that they did in the second half anyway. What I noticed the exact same thing you noticed, in that I think Celtic's press was good, but it wasn't that good in that we couldn't exploit it. We actually had several good build-up sequences. Our passing and movement was good up until a certain point in the first half, and then it would just break down through one bad decision. I don't even want to single out any particular player because I think everyone kind of had this in them at some point in the first half where they just make a wrong decisions. They make the wrong pass. They force something when another pass was open, and there's a lot of space to be exploited behind Celta's initial pressing line, and we just didn't take advantage of it. And I think that probably had a little bit to do with the atmosphere or the frenetic start and the energy that Celtic had to start this game. And again, as the game wore on, the game calmed down. We just knocked it around pretty smoothly and pretty effortlessly. But I did want to just highlight again, because I know I said this, but Militao in that first half, before he comes off at halftime, 5 clearances and a couple really important interventions in the box. Carvajal had 3 really big interventions in the box. I forget who it was on a couple of them, but one of them in the 34th minute on McGregor, which was a hell of a challenge. And Modric was just covering so much ground because Tchouaméni had a bit of a slow start in this game too. Eventually he came good and started to get a foothold on it. But there was space behind Tchouaméni, kind of similar to the way there was space behind Tchouaméni in, I think it was it the Espanyol game? Maybe, I think. I'm getting a couple of those games mixed up. I don't know if it was Espanyol or Celta. I think it was Espanyol.
But getting all the you keep saying Celta, so you're getting all the games mixed up.
Celta, Celtic, Wednesday, Tuesday, man. Come on, I'm trying to figure all this out. It's a blur. It's already a blur, and the schedule is about to get crazier. It's going to get even more blurry. But yeah, so True. Modric, I thought, covered a lot of ground in that first half as well. So I wanted to highlight all of that. When Benzema gets injured, he pulls up. It's complete meltdown, right? Because this has been the biggest story all summer. Backup striker. This is the scenario we all wanted to avoid. It's the least. It's the one where if you had to make a list of things that could go wrong, that would be number one on the list probably. And so that happens. Why don't you give us the update that Ancelotti gave us after the game?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right of it being the story of the summer, number one of the list, because it kind of has been at the front of everyone's minds that Benzema could get injured, because this was even what I put as the headline after the Betis win on the weekend, on Saturday. Ancelotti in the press conference, that was the headline quote I went for. Was he was asked a question? Benzema was absolutely fine, not injured, didn't have his best game, but no problem. And he was asked a question about Benzema, and he said, actually Benzema has lots of replacements. Everyone kind of scratched their head. It was good actually. This was now at the Bernabeu, the press room is back open again after COVID, and you can actually go there in person and sort of look around the room and see everyone scratch their head in bewilderment a little bit that you couldn't do when everyone was on Zoom. So everyone's kind of okay. And Ancelotti starts rhyming off players: Mariano, Asensio, Rodrigo. And he says, "Wow, Modric too, but I tried that, it didn't really work. Ha ha ha." Typical Ancelotti. But it was kind of just a weird moment of there are players who you could put on the pitch and tell them to stand at where the number 9 position is, but there is no replacement for Benzema. And this was something that came up after 4th win out of 4 against Betis in a match where Benzema was absolutely not injured. So it was at the front of everybody's minds. Now it comes into this one. You see, maybe if you look back on the film for that first half, I'd be interested to see just how he was looking, because Benzema, I think, was really not very involved. Really kind of let the game pass him by in that first half hour. I'd be interested now to go back and look and see if he was seemingly running a bit iffy and already had that injury before he went down. That's something I'm not sure about. But yeah, so Ancelotti said that don't know yet. The reports are it's a right knee, which is always a bit of a problem when you're talking about the knees. But this was something that was going to happen. For sure, he was going to miss games with injuries. Even last season, he missed 10 games with either injury or fatigue. 10 games, whole games that he sat out, never mind all the time he spent on the bench, which wasn't much, but some games, of course, he comes off. That's 10 full games, and that was when he was a year younger, not a World Cup in the middle. It was always good that Benzema would miss games, and now you think, well, of course, everybody could see this coming, and 6 days after the transfer window, it's already happened that Real Real Madrid need to find someone to replace him, and in this game at least, it was Hazard.
Yeah, the age worries me a little bit with injuries, obviously, and the heaviness of the schedule. Um, I suppose, like, if you had signed someone, obviously this is the game you would bring him in. I don't think if Jovic was still here, he would have played in this scenario like this. I think he would have would have went for a false nine instead. But we haven't signed anyone, so hopefully we don't have to talk about this too much throughout the season. But it is a concern. So the substitution is Hazard for Benzema. I I thought it was going to be Hazard or Asensio,
Yeah,
but to
what did you
me,
think? What did you think in the moment? The camera pans and it's Hazard warming up. What were your thoughts exactly in that moment when you realise it is Hazard coming on and there's an hour to play and that first half hour hadn't been good?
okay, so I'll tell you what my feeling in the moment was, and I'll tell you that my feeling was wrong, obviously, and I'm happy that it was wrong. So, uh, so I just wanted to say that. Uh, my feeling is that our best false nine still, I mean, this doesn't change that feeling I have, that our best option after Benzema is still Rodrigo. I think he occupies central positions the best out of anyone we have right now. And I think he is the best. I don't know if I will say best goal scorer because I think Asensio has proven that he can finish chances. But I also think Rodrigo will get into better chances. And I think his understanding with Vinicius and Benzema is better. And I just think he's the best fit. But that didn't happen. So for whatever reason, maybe Ancelotti disagreed or he wanted to save Rodrigo for the second half. That's fine. So then Hazard comes in. Me personally, I've been on record about this. I'm pretty well agnostic about Hazard in a sense that I feel like there's two factions of Hazard. There's one is that he's hopeless and he's a lost cause and he's a disaster. And then there is the side of like there is, which I realized today that it does still exist if you dig deep enough, like under the cave and lift up some boulders, that they do come out. There is a contingent of Hazard cult following that Hazard is still Chelsea Hazard, and how dare you even question this substitution? So I've always been, I don't even know if I'm in the middle, because if I had to lean, I've always leaned towards kind of like, I don't think Hazard Chelsea is coming back. Like really, like we made a whole School of Real Madrid video about this, that like this is what he can still do that he's been doing with the Belgium national team in that free role that doesn't exist at Real Madrid. He can do link up stuff, he can connect dots, he can play good passes, he can hold the ball, but he's not going to be like attacking the box and attacking crosses like Benzema does. Like just don't expect that. So I think like if you get something from Hazard this season, that's a nice bonus to have. But I just don't expect the old Hazard to come back. So having said that, if we just analyze his performance in a vacuum, which by the way, like if we're going to use him this season, he needs games like this where he gets confidence so he can help us consistently throughout the season. His first couple touches, understandably, maybe were rough. Like he dribbles into traffic, he should have played an easier pass, gets bailed out by a foul, and I also just in that moment, I also it confirmed my belief that this is a very chaotic, high energy game where they're flying in for challenges, they're winning the ball back quickly. And was this a good game to throw Hazard into in this atmosphere? As the half wore on, I felt like he picked up the ball better. He eased into it. His touches were better. He was dropping at one point. Let me just check my notes when that happened. Hazard section in the basically just like at the end of the first half, like almost at the final whistle, he's basically dropping as a center midfielder, playing like forming this double pivot with Modric to escape the press. Meanwhile, Tchouaméni is going into the box, so he's dropping deep. He's getting involved in the link up, and obviously he had that ball over the top to Vinicius for the breakaway, which I think would have been called offside if Vinicius scored that, but I'm not entirely sure. I didn't see many replays. And then obviously he had the pre-assist on the first goal. He had the assist for the second goal, and he scored the third goal. So he recovered really well and had a great game. So yeah, that's my thought. What were your thoughts in the moment?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, the first few touches, the first minute or two was not great, but at the same time, you have to understand he's coming in cold. He wasn't warming up. You're not expecting injury in the first half, and you're certainly not expecting Hazard to be one of the solutions anyway. So he's coming on a little bit, not when he's expecting to. And you're right though, there was one challenge in particular where he really gets taken out, and he's getting up ready after the free kick, and he sort of just looks like, okay, like I was maybe not expecting this, maybe had to get in a different frame of mind. After half time, he knows he's in the game, he's ready to go, and I thought he was really good. The problem with Hazard, of course, is he's, like you say, you can have the Belgium Hazard where he's there, he's linking up, he's doing this, but you never have the Hazard that's the real threat in the penalty box anymore. The thing you have with Benzema is he's both, and that's the thing we've said with Benzema so many times. It's a cliche now at this point that Benzema's not a number 9, he's a number 9.5. He's a cross between a number 9 and a number 10, and he plays both of them at the same time. Hazard can play the number 9 position like a really good number 10, but as he does that and links up really well, the way that Benzema also does and brings players into play, he isn't then getting back in the box like Benzema does to finish those chances off. Even if he's there physically in the box, sometimes he's not the same as Benzema. So Benzema can play, we've seen it so many times, so many Benzema goals where he comes really deep, gets the ball, plays it off the flanks, and then all of a sudden the cross comes in and Benzema's there again. And you think, how did he get there so quickly? Hazard's not that guy. So when he's your line of attack, yeah, of course he can make things flow in the attack, but for him to be there and turning in chances, I think is unlikely. And people will point to, and I'm sure it'll be the easy headline tomorrow is Hazard scored a goal, but I'd put that goal 90% down to Dani Carvajal and his touchback. Hazard's in the right place at the right time, and I'm not too sure. Of course, Hazard makes the right run and gets a little bit of space, but I think that goal was all about Carvajal just putting it on the plate for Hazard. So I'd need to see more goals from Hazard in the false number 9 position before you can start thinking about him replacing Benzema even halfway in that sense. But of course, you score a goal, you get an assist and a pre-assist, that's going to get the headlines. But it was more the assist and the pre-assist that impressed me than the actual goal, because that was all down to the really lovely, 33 passes, I think, the move, and then Carvajal cutting it back just absolutely perfectly. So.
Yeah, there was a lot of fluid pieces and in motion on the build-up to that goal. I will say, I don't think if Vinicius keeps playing like this, which is just absurd what he's doing right now, you don't necessarily. I mean, I won't say you don't need it, because I don't think you can go and win a Champions League title with a one-man show, because 2 years ago was Benzema by himself. Last year was Benzema and Vinicius. We need both of their outputs. But if you're getting contributions for goals, at least maybe you can you don't need Hazard scoring 2 goals a game or even a goal a game. But if you're having him contribute to the offense and linking up, someone is asking about Mendy in the first half. I did want to mention Mendy too as well, because Mendy, this is an interesting thing. I was really impressed with him in the last game against, who were you playing? You and Celtic, Celta, Espanyol, Real Betis. Real Betis on a Saturday.
A team in green and white.
Green and white. Real Betis on a Saturday. I wrote about this today. If anyone hasn't read it, you can go over to managingmadrid.com. I have a couple videos clipped as well in that article. But Mendy and Alaba, their interchangeability, again, it works. In this particular game, I noted at halftime that he hadn't misplaced a single pass. And he also didn't misplace a single pass against Real Betis. 100% passing accuracy. He's also the first in the entire league right now, La Liga, in passing accuracy. So I brought up that stat. Someone mentioned to me that, okay, it's not that impressive because Mendy is mostly passing sideways or backwards. And I'm like, you know what, fair. But I will say, I think he's been, the reason I think it's noteworthy is because he's been press resistant. He's been comfortable under pressure. He's been comfortable dribbling out of tight spaces. And actually in the second half, he started to drop his shoulder, play vertical passes. He had some nice forward passes. He was carrying the ball. So it's been a really good Mendy, I don't know, 1.5 games now. He's been, I think maybe the first game against Almeria was kind of not great because he was getting in the final third but wasn't doing much offensively and wasn't doing well. But right now he's playing well. So it's nice to see this version of Mendy as well. We got to talk about Toni Kroos. I don't know, who won the official man of the match award? Do we know?
Mm, no, not sure yet. Let me have a look. But yeah, if it's not Kroos, which I doubt it will be Kroos actually, because you tend to have to
His game
score to
isn't
win it,
flashy
the
enough.
UEFA one, or you have to do what Courtois did in the Champions League final to win it. So I doubt it'll be Kroos, but let me see who it was.
Maybe it'll go to Hazard. I feel like the flashiest performance usually gets it, but it got to be noted. Kroos was amazing, and I know that. I think people are probably
Oh,
sick.
oh,
Is it a
oh!
surprise one?
There we go. There he is. There's your man. Hold up his MVP award.
Man,
Wow.
whoever gave out
Okay.
the award tonight knows
Let's
ball. I'll say
let's
that.
yeah. Trust in UEFA restored. Fair
All right.
enough.
So for those listening
Okay.
and not watching this podcast, Ewan showed up a picture of Kroos, who's holding the Man of the Match award. So Kroos was, and again, I know people on this podcast are probably just sick of it. It's just like every clip that gets clipped out on social media is this Kroos swoon fest. But it's got to be reiterated tonight. Like 136 touches. He had 17 long balls attempted. Do you want to take a guess on how many he completed out of those 17?
Yeah, I know the answer, but yeah.
17!
Yeah.
17! How does that know? That's insane. 17 long balls attempted. 17 long balls completed. That's not normal. I actually want like Mr. Chip to look into that. Like when was the last time something like that happened at that volume? Like that's absurd. And it's not like Celtic were just letting him straight passes around the park.
Yeah.
Not in the first half anyway. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's
Because
unbelievable.
Cruz was obviously like so involved, so playing lots of really good long balls. But Modric has a couple of important ones too. Definitely had the perception that he wasn't doing as much as Cruz, but was like, okay, Cruz had 17 of 17. What did Modric have just for comparison? And Modric had 3 out of 5. Like, whoa, okay, that really just reiterates that Modric, who also looked good, also made some important long balls, was not anywhere close to the 17 out of 17. Yeah, you're right. Like that stat can't be like it's probably a record or since whatever record began, which might not be too long ago, but you know.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'd love to know. I'd love to know more about this stat and who's been able. It's probably like he broke his own record or something silly like that. Like he
Mm,
was like 16 for
yeah.
16 or like 14 for 17 something
Just wanted to
another
get your
day.
thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, so I thought I would share my screen based on your point about something here. Let me just bring this up. Because I thought, as you stated, the team's build up, balance, whatever, was more balanced today. And all right, so we get to the right tab. So this is us today against Celtic. And this is us on the weekend against Real Betis. You can kind of see the red cluster here of the heat map. That's where that's where the bulk of our attack was against Betis and where it is generally speaking. And today it was much more balanced. And I think that had a lot to do with Fede being much more involved in the final third this time and driving the ball up forward. And so I think it's an interesting point to bring up. And personally, like I've never been really like I've never really cared about symmetry or balance much as other people have. The reality is some teams will be heavy dominant on the left side with their possession, the way they funnel the ball up the field. Some teams will be more balanced. At our peak, like everything was dominant on the left side, and that's where our strengths are. And so that can also mean the right side becomes very effective because when everything is on the left, if you have really good switches of the ball, like Ramos in the past or Cruz, then you can hit that Carvajal sprint on the other side and hit them, and that frees up a lot of space as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. But yeah, certainly today was a bit of a deviation in terms of the balance of play on the wings.
Right.
Anything to add, Ewan?
No, exactly. To me, it's a little bit interesting that it becomes more balanced when it's Fede on the right and not Rodrigo. You'd think having Vinicius and Rodrigo either side of each other would be what would make it most symmetrical, but actually, it's having a very different player from Rodrigo and Fede that is what's making the balance more even. That's just interesting to me. Don't know, maybe it's because he links up better with Modric. Don't know the reason, but it's interesting that you see the difference there with the Betis one when it was Rodrigo starting.
Yeah, and Rodrigo, the last couple of games, the theme has been that he's been going to, even when he's like quote unquote, like he comes on the right wing, he's on the left wing the whole time, combining with Vinicius and Benzema overloading that side. So yeah, he hasn't necessarily brought the width on the right that fit. What's up, Madridistas and Celtic fans stopping by to enjoy the show? This is Kiyan Sobani. I just wanted to say thank you for watching the show, and you will have noticed that this one kind of jumped around a little bit. There was no real flow of conversation. It did not have a starting point. It did not have an end point. And we kind of just jumped around. That's because this was not the full episode. The full episode is over on patreon.com/managingmadrid. It was over an hour and a half long. It was live on Zoom. And if you want access to that and every single Champions League post-game show live on Zoom, plus if you can't make it for whatever reason or you want to watch it again, you get a link afterwards and you'll have access to it. No worries. If you want to be part of that Real Madrid family, join the discourse, join the dialogue, be a part of something and get access to everything, go to patreon.com/managingmadrid. No pressure, but if you like our work and you want to support high quality journalism and you want to be a part of this ever-growing Real Madrid family, we would welcome you. You get a ton of value in return, and we would love to see you inside. Again, patreon.com/managingmadrid. And thank you so much for supporting us and watching the show and being part of this family. We love you guys. Hala Maria.